Good evening. I'm calling the Monday, October 14th, 2019 Planning Commission meeting to order. Will everyone please rise for the Pledge of Allegiance?
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you. All right. Starting this evening with the approval of tonight's agenda. Do I have any requests for changes? Seeing none, I'll entertain a motion to approve the agenda for the evening.
I'll approve the agenda.
All right. And do I have a second to approve the agenda?
Second.
All right. All those in favor of approving the agenda say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? All right. Agenda's approved. Moving on, approval from the minutes from the last meeting held on Monday, September 9th, 2019. Do I have any requests for changes or concerns? Seeing none, entertain a motion to approve.
So moved.
All right. Do I have a second?
Second.
All those in favor of approving the minutes say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? All right. The minutes are approved. All right, moving on tonight, we have two public hearings. The first one is a Costco fuel facility expansion. This is a continued item from August of 2019. This is a request for PUD concept review on 18.18 acres, a planned unit development district amendment with waivers on 18.18 acres, a site plan review on 18.18 acres. Will the proponent of the project please come forward? Good evening. If you would you say your name for the record and tell us about your project, please?
Sure. Good evening. My name is Julie Anderson with Barkhausen Consulting Engineers located in Kent, Washington. I am the project planner as well as the applicant for this project. With me is our team, which consists of Jerry Krieg, Costco Development Team with TJ Design Strategies, and Chris Diesler, Traffic Engineer with Kittleson and Associates. And we have a PowerPoint presentation to share with you today. So as you said, Costco is requesting a PUD amendment and a site plan review to allow for the expansion of their existing Costco gas station. The majority of the project site is located on the eastern edge of the existing facility, which is located in the northern portion of the Costco development. So the project scope includes the installation of 4 new dispensers along that eastern edge, the installation of a new UST underground storage tank and new controller enclosure, and then an approximately 2,600 square foot expansion of the existing canopy to cover the additional dispensers. The intent of the expansion is to reduce vehicle queues, help improve site circulation, and just to provide overall a more efficient fuel purchasing experience for Costco members. The existing condition is 8 dispensers covered with an about 3,800 square foot canopy. And then the site plan here shows the new improvements in bold. As stated, there's 4 new dispensers will be installed along the eastern edge for a total of 12 dispensers for the site. And then a 2,600 square foot expansion for about 6,400 square foot canopy overall. The design of the expansion is consistent with the existing fuel facility, which includes brick veneer canopy columns and a metal canopy fascia. It will provide a seamless transition between the existing facility and the expansion. The design will remain consistent with, as I said, the existing fuel facility as well as the Costco warehouse and the surrounding area. And then that concludes our presentation. I, as well as the rest of the team, are available to answer any questions. We did read the staff report and the attached conditions of approval, and we do accept the condition.
Great, thank you. Some initial questions. Yes, Commissioner Betty. Commissioner Villarreal.
So my question is about the attendant station, I think if that's what it's called. Is that getting completely reconstructed?
The controller enclosure,
Yeah.
yes. So it's not necessarily an attendant station, it's more of a mechanical equipment enclosure, but the attendant does go inside to check on the equipment and do maintenance and everything, but it's not necessarily, it's an attendant enclosure. But yes, it will be, the existing one will be demolished and then a completely new one will be built.
Okay, looking at the elevations, it looks like the new one is going to be completely these steel panels. And the existing one, I'm just pulling up a picture of it, is, because I couldn't remember exactly what it looked like. I drove by there the other day, but it looks like it is, the existing one's brick in a style that matches the columns of the pillars of the gas station awning. So I think that's, I guess, one comment or question that I have is if we could maintain the architectural style of that mechanical space from what it is now, which is matching the pillars in the brick style as opposed to the pure metal facade.
Okay, yeah, the new design is Costco's current standard for their controller enclosures. If council does have some concerns with that design, Costco can reevaluate that and kind of discuss that with staff and try to provide something more similar to what's existing.
Okay, thank you.
Commissioner Villarreal?
So on the transformer that's being moved, is it just being moved, or are you getting a larger transformer?
It won't necessarily be larger, but we are upgrading the service size for it.
Okay.
But it will be in about the same location as the existing one.
Do you know if that location is upgradable to add, let's say, either a larger transformer or an additional transformer?
There'll be the location that it's in. They're going to be removing the existing transformer, putting in a new one with an upgraded service size. So it will be a larger service. It'll be a 400 amp transformer.
Well, the reason why I'm asking is you're right across the street from a big substation, and it seems that where you're fueling, there could be other types of fuel sources other than gasoline that could be done at this location. So I was thinking that if this area is upgradable for a larger transformer to do of DC fast charging, that it might not be a bad idea to just prepare that location for DC fast charging. Have you thought about that?
I'm not sure Costco's thought about that. I know at some locations they will do diesel, but this location is not slated for diesel service. As far as their current plans show, is just going to remain a gasoline, regular unleaded and premium site.
So you don't know if Costco has a plan to start piloting electric charging?
Not to my knowledge, no.
Okay, thanks.
Not for this site.
Other questions? Commissioner Atkins?
I have one question that relates to the movement of the vehicles coming in and leaving from the pumping stations. It looks like they will have a different method of leaving that part of the parking area. And I wondered if you had talked about it at all. One of the problems that sometimes happens now is that the vehicles kind of get behind each other and can't get around each other to get out. And then they come out in such a way sometimes that they're in conflict with the cross traffic as it's coming in and going beyond the pumping area. And I would have thought that there would be some need to address that, but I didn't see what I was thinking I would see. So I'm not sure that I'm being clear, but I was just wondering how you have looked at that and what you think you've got with the new arrangement that's an improvement over what happens currently.
So I don't think that there have been any issues with that brought to our knowledge or Costco's knowledge as far as circulation with the exit area on site. I think the intent is that members will stop before exiting to make sure that there's no vehicles coming through that drive aisle before they exit the fuel facility. But not to my knowledge, no circulation issues have been raised from the site or members.
I have a question. Could you discuss the metrics around it? I don't know. Do you measure your busiest times by the amount of average cars in line or the amount of time the wait is? I'm just wondering if you go and put these four in, what goes from to.
Sure. And actually, we have Costco's traffic consultant here today, and so he's probably better equipped to dive into those details since he's the one that does kind of the traffic analysis and the data collection. So I'll invite him up to better address those questions.
Thank you. Good evening. If you could say your name for the record.
Sure, absolutely. Chris Teasler with Kittleson and Associates, Reston, Virginia. I I could go back to the previous commissioner's question about the exit. So there's no planned change in configuration in terms of how vehicles exit the gas station upon taking on fuel. Again, the pavement markings indicate that those drivers should stop and yield to cross traffic. We were actually at the site this evening, just observing again. Every once in a while, somebody has to wait for a few seconds, but in general, that's a very common setup for Costco across the fleet, and so we typically don't see issues on the exiting side of that. So, so hopefully that helps address that. With respect to the traffic volume, so the additional dispensers, Costco is a member-only fuel service, and so only members can get gas. So what we see is not really like a straight line type of growth in traffic volumes, because it's really the same captive audience. And really, when we isolate the gas station with before and after data, where we've done several of these expansions across the United States, we really only see a very nominal increase in actually new traffic to the site. The increased volume that you do see when you isolate the gas station is really due to induced demand, where Costco members are otherwise coming to the site to shop the warehouse. They think, oh, well, if it's not busy, I'll get gas. But if they get there and it's a little bit busier, they say, I don't want to wait that long for gas. I'm just not going to get gas. So you're basically just capturing that, and really we're effectively increasing the processing capacity of the gas station by 50% by adding 8 additional fueling positions. So it's basically just going to eat through that demand quicker, and it actually reduces overall queues and wait times for the members. And so that's really the intent of the project.
Is there like an average wait time that you had now and then that you're trying to get to, just basing on how many?
Yeah, so the wait times obviously can vary quite a bit. So our traffic analysis looked at the 2 kind of peak periods, so the weekday PM peak hour and then a Saturday midday as well. And we actually looked at the queues. So we typically look at how many cars are queued kind of as a surrogate for that wait time, right? So the more cars, you're going to have to wait longer. Again, the before and after data that we empirically collect at Costco's that have expanded their gas stations show a 30 to 50% decrease in the queue lengths, which effectively is a 30 to 50% decrease in wait times for people getting gas.
Okay, thank you.
Sure.
Any other questions? Okay, thank you.
Oh, I have one.
Oh, sorry, Commissioner Meddy.
I guess this is maybe more of an operational comment, and my only, I guess, slight issue I have with the existing layout is that you have 2 stalls deep of people getting gas, and then there's a center lane in case that front person is finished and drives away, that next person can come around. Mm-hmm. This is Minnesota, and there's too many Minnesota drivers, and they're just too polite to just do that, and they sit there and wait, and it slows everybody down. With these new 2 new rows, they're now 3 deep. So I'm concerned that's gonna, kind of exacerbate that even more, where there's 1 person at the furthest one back, there's 2 open ones in front. That person isn't going around. So I guess my again, operational comment for Costco is for the attendants that are there to really, pay attention to that and get people, moving around, because I don't see that necessarily alleviating the problem if there's not someone helping people around, because now there's less space for the line because the stations are taking up more space. And I see that all the time when I go there. So that's just a comment for Costco.
Okay. I could offer 2 things quickly to that point. The first would be that the design itself is actually set up to provide additional space between the second and third dispensers, an additional 5 feet. And again, that 3 and even 4 deep in some of our West Coast gas stations, at that spacing allows cars to pull in and out without having to do any sort of like backing maneuver if they were trying to get into that middle station. So that's the first thing. The second thing that is Costco has adopted a relatively new system for anything that's more than 2 deep. So in the 2 rows at the end that are going to be 3 deep, they have a little LED board that shows, that detects whether a car is there. So when you're back behind that 3 row deep and the first person goes, the gas station symbol turns from red to green, so people know that, oh, that one up front is open, whereas it might be hard if you were in a Prius and you're behind a 4Runner to see all the way to the front. So that, coupled with absolutely attendance, kind of paying attention and making sure that those are being utilized, addresses that concern, I think.
Thanks. Yeah, that's a great,
Sure.
idea on Costco's part to do that. So hopefully that gets people to, move around.
We're all
go
about
to the front
efficiency.
of the line. Nobody likes to budge
For
here in
sure.
Minnesota.
Okay.
Thanks.
Sure.
Okay, great, thank you.
Thank you.
Julie, will you be doing the planner's report?
Yes, sir. Mr. Chair, members of the commission, Costco is requesting a PUD amendment with waivers as well as a site plan review in order to construct the project as they've presented it to you this evening. As stated, they are looking to add a couple of pump dispensers to the existing fuel facility. There is some removal of parking spaces, as you have seen through your plans. However, the site overall still exceeds the parking requirement for retail development in this area. The waivers that are requested are due to the driveway widths. Those are existing conditions. So city code discusses that driveways should not be wider than 30 feet in width at the right-of-way. In Costco's case, both of those driveways do exceed that 30-foot requirement. However, that was the condition in which it was constructed, and that waiver was not included the initial time around. So we just want to kind of clean house a little bit and make sure that's documented in this approval. So staff is recommending approval of the project, subject to the conditions listed in your staff report, and I'm happy to answer any questions that you might have.
Thank you. Questions for the city?
Mr. Chair,
Commissioner Fur.
2 quick questions of staff. First, Julie, in the staff report, you included 2 aerial photographs. One of them was of the current condition, and the other one was of the original construction back when they had even fewer gas lanes and a smaller canopy. Could you give us the timeline of that? How many years was it ago that they asked for the first enlargement of the gas station upgrade? And any circumstances rising out of that approval?
Mr. Chair, members of the commission, to the best of staff's knowledge, there was not a public review process that was gone through when those additional pumps were added. In this case, we are asking that it receive a site plan approval and a PUD review approval as a part of that. I apologize, I don't have the exact year that occurred.
Okay, and probably the exact year wasn't as important as my next question, leading up to the fact that if they're not increasing the area of impervious surface area this time, they just have a earthwork disturbance. What's the trigger for the stormwater management improvements on the east side of the parking lot?
Mr. Chairman, members of the commission, I believe the criteria or the stormwater improvements that they're doing is more of a watershed district requirement, not a city requirement, because there's very little additional impervious.
Right. So if the first gas station expansion was done at the time at which the current watershed regs were in existence, that's what I was wondering. Did enough time go by so that the district regs have changed?
Well, they may have originally built that facility when there wasn't rules for the watershed district. That's certainly possible in that time frame, but they would have to meet the rules as of today. So.
Okay.
Which is additional impervious area.
Okay. All right. So, again, maybe going back to Julie then, for that first expansion, even though it didn't come in front of the Planning Commission, the parking calculations that are in the staff report to support the fact that the building got built with more parking than minimum, and then there was a parking reduction for the first gas station expansion, and now they're asking for a second parking reduction, it still meets code minimum.
Mr. Chair, members of the commission, yes, it still exceeds the code minimum for parking requirements.
Okay. So they must have had a desire in the first place to overpark it based upon consumer demand, and that's just getting whittled away now. Thank you.
Other questions for the city? Commissioner May.
Julie, just going back to my comment on the controller building, I just took a really quick look at the code, so I could have missed something, but the way I read it was that all buildings are required to meet the architectural standards, which is that 75% of Class 1 materials. So I was wondering if this is anything the city looked at and thought it was okay, or if it's just something that you didn't know at all. But in my opinion, it seems that should be enforced here, unless there's some allowance in the code for something like this. But I'm curious from your perspective what anything you have to say about that.
Mr. Chair, members of the commission. So as Commissioner Meddy said, the code does require 75-25 split between Class 1 and Class 2 materials. With regard to accessory structures such as this, staff would look at that similar to what we would look for a trash enclosure. And we don't require that specific 75-25% split on a trash enclosure, but we would require that to be materials that are complementary and consistent with the existing primary structure on site. So to Commissioner Meddy's comments, we can certainly continue to work with the applicant between Planning Commission and City Council review to integrate some of the changes to increase some of those materials, brick and the like that you see in the existing structure, and work to carry those forward in the new structure as well.
Thank you. Yeah, I think I feel strongly that given the existing building is that brick that matches the design of both the building and these columns, that we should try to continue that. So that would be my hope, that that gets worked into the plans.
Okay, other questions? All right, this is a public hearing. If anyone would like to come forward and speak for or against this project, please do so now. Seeing none, I'll entertain a motion to close the public hearing, continue discussion.
I move it.
All right, we have a motion to close public hearing. Do I have a second?
I second it.
And a second. All those in favor of closing public hearing, say aye.
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 Oppose? All right. Public hearing is closed. Further discussion?
Mr. Chair,
Yes, Commissioner Farr.
I stand behind Commissioner Meddy's comment about the brick-clad enclosure, and I was mentally jumping on the bandwagon here as I was listening to her. I looked up, and it looks like they're painting it a oak color to match, apparently to match the brick. So I think they're trying to match it from a color standpoint, which is maybe getting halfway there. And as long as it's an accessory structure, that satisfied me, I think. I think if it was going to be a primary structure, then I'm all over it. So, I don't know if there's a plant or two screening around it or not, but if it's painted like the brick, and if it's an accessory structure, I think that accessory structure classification is probably good enough for me. I also want to underscore Commissioner Villarreal's comment about the electric vehicle charging stations. Costco is a very large national retailer, and I think they should be embracing a position and a posture of environmental sensitivity. And while the profit from selling gallons of gasoline may exceed the profit from selling some volts, I think you should really look hard at that comment and take that back to management and be a leader, not a follower. Otherwise, I'm okay with it. Thanks.
Thank you. Other comments? Commissioner Villarreal?
So I want to thank Commissioner Farr for his support on bringing up more discussion on electric vehicles. I'm just looking at the plan, and I think I agree with everything that Commissioner Meddy, Commissioner Farr said about the materials being used here, and I have no real problem with the application itself. I just am fearful that we're missing a really good opportunity here, since it's right across the street from a substation. They're putting a new transformer, and there's 5 parking spots right next to the transformer. That seems to me an ideal opportunity to put in a 500 kV fast charger. Coupled with the state is in the midst of finalizing its rules on accessing the VW settlement funds to put out fast charging throughout the state of Minnesota. I would just, again, really encourage y'all to look at how to access that funding and put at least one, if not two try to figure out a way to get one, if not two fast chargers in that location, because it seems like a pretty optimal location for one or two.
Mr. Chair,
Yes,
could I ask
Park.
Commissioner Villarreal just to expand upon that a little bit and maybe explain for me personally, the commission and everybody else, the time difference between one of these fast charging features and maybe something more conventional? As an architect, I would think of placing them close to the front door of the facility so that a shopper would get a preferred parking space, plug in their vehicle, go shop, and then come out. I'm there for maybe 45 minutes or so. I'm thinking that maybe you're talking about one where you can charge your car up in a few minutes, like filling your tank of gas. And I don't know that to be true, so I thought maybe just a quick snippet from you might be helpful.
Sure. So a DC fast charger, the ones that are showing up on the market are upwards of 500, 700, 750 kV. So if your battery is at, I'll say empty, which is not actually empty, and you hook up to a DC fast charger, then yeah, you can be charged in 7 minutes or less, depending on how far down you've taken your battery. A slower charge, either a lower fast charging or a level 2 charger, yeah, you could put it right near the front of the door and come back in 45 minutes, and it gives you a good enough charge depending on where you were at before. So the different sizes serve different purposes. The DC fast chargers are supposed to be more like gas stations, where you can go there, get a big jump start on your battery charging, and then move on without having to stick around in shops more. So having it be close to the gas station side of it is fine. I mean, you can always manage that charge, and they can still go in and buy a bunch of stuff. Also, because of the draw and the size of the transformer you're going to need, it's going to take up some space. So not having it be that close to the front door and further away, I think there's going to be a lot more space on the edges of parking lots to do that. Plus, since it's much closer to the substation, you don't have as much loss. I mean, it's not a far distance, but there's going to be less loss than that. So there's space. There's some open parking spots. It's near the Technology Drive. It's near the highways. These are the type of
What's
things
the
we
name
should
of
be
that street?
Technology Drive.
Oh, that's a great name.
It is a good name.
It's a great name. Thank you.
Right
for
down the street from
clarification.
Emerson, who I think makes some associated components.
Great, that's a great name. Thank you.
All right, other.
Should we take this on the road?
Yeah. Actually, Commissioner Meddy, I have a question for you about the 75-25. Are you talking about 75-25 on just the new 4 pumps going in?
On the controller building, I don't know what's controller station,
Okay.
which is to the left of the pumps. This building
Just
right
on
here.
that part?
Yeah,
Okay.
because the pumps themselves, the awning is a metal trim and the columns are brick, and then there's the other metals to do with the pumps. But the existing controller building has the same brick design as the columns and the build and the large main building. So that's why, I'm like, well, if it's there now, it'd be nice to keep that and not sort of, I see the metal as, less desirable. I agree with Commissioner Farr's comments that maybe, some vines or a vine wall or something could be sort of in between solution, but whether or not it's required by code, I'm more like, I think they should do it because it's like that now, kind of a thing. So there's not a real, strong justification for whether or not we should enforce it.
Okay, great. Thank you. All right, other comments, discussion items? Does anyone want to put in some commentary into a motion about the charging stations or the 75-25, or just? Or did Julie said they would continue to work with them?
Yeah, if staff
Is that
can
fine for-
continue to work with them, I'm
Okay.
fine with the motion the way it is.
Okay with everyone else? Okay. Would anyone like to make a motion?
Mr. Chair, I will. I'd move to recommend approval of a PUD concept review on 18.18 acres, plan unit development amendment with waiver on 18.18 acres, and site plan review on 18.18 acres based on plans stamped dated September 23rd, 2019, and the staff report dated October 3rd, 2019.
All right, great. I have a motion from Commissioner Farr. Do I have a second?
Second.
A second from Commissioner Kirk. All those in favor of approving say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Would anyone like to abstain? Seeing none, all right. Congrats, your project moves forward. Thank you. We appreciate your patience with our questions. Good luck. All right, moving on this evening, we have another public hearing, the 9 Mile Creek Watershed District Office Building Addition 2019-17. Request for a planned unit development concept review on 5.31 acres, planned unit development district amendment with waivers on 5.31 acres, and a site plan review on 5.31 acres. Will the proponent of the project please step forward? Good evening.
Good evening. Thank you, Mr. Chair and Commissioners. My name is Randy Anhorn. I'm the District Administrator for the 9 Mile Creek Watershed District, and I also have a PowerPoint for you this evening to kind of walk through the application.
Great, that'd be great, thank you.
So as I mentioned, I'm the Administrator at 9 Mile Creek. Our office is at 12800 Gerard Drive. Some of you may be somewhat familiar with that parcel. Beautiful parcel. It's a nice place to go into work. So we were donated this property and the existing house back in 2011, prior to me actually being the administrator there, and worked with the city because it is an office building now, are being used as an office building in a residential neighborhood. So as part of that, we've gone through and worked with the city on a development agreement, and we'll go through that here in a little bit. The area is, I don't know, does this have a pointer at all? So anyway, we're bordered to the north, which would be the left side by city property, which is a trail that goes toward the Cardinal Creek wetland. There's about a mile-long trail. And then to the east, also by city property. We also have a conservation easement on the property that pretty much mimics some of the restrictions that are also in the city and the watersheds development agreement. So a little bit about the development agreement. Two main things in there. One was that we were restricted to the number of full-time employees that we could have in our office, which was at 3. We came back as we're trying to do some of the work in our watershed management plan. We realized that we needed a few more staff, and we came back for an amendment to that agreement back in late 2017, early 2018, and in February 2018, it was amended to increase our number of full-time employees from 3 to 5. There's another component in there, so we have restrictions for use and development. So within the development agreement, we also are restricted to future or subsequent expansions or renovations, and we can only increase that by 50% of what the original footprint was for the house, and I'll go through that in a minute as well. Well, I just went through that, I guess. So any expansion, modification, replacement is 50%. That also is stated as such in the conservation easement held by Minnesota Land Trust. Whoop, back one. So quickly, and you have this in your application, the site plan shows our current office space. We have the driveway, which is to the right, that goes down. We have parking stalls, which are permeable pavers. We also have a geogrid overflow parking, so it's grass, if we talked about stormwater earlier. We have the original building, and then on the lower left, we can see that little shaded area, kind of little L. That is where our expansion will be. So it's a one-level, 486 square foot addition is what we're trying to establish. And with our now 4 employees, we have somewhat limited office space and storage, and that will give us the office space that if and when we go to that 5th employee, we'd be able to house them comfortably and also have storage for some of our things we need. The proposed addition, we mentioned that 50% expansion is our limit. So the first row, we talked about the original home size. There actually was a garage there at one time. We knocked it down, but the original house itself was 3,826 square feet. So if we multiply that by 1.5, 50%, the maximum, the lowest row would be 5,739 square feet. After we got the home, we did a little renovation. We added a meeting room for our board, as well as an area for when we have educational things that go on. So we added just less than 1,000 square feet. So currently, our office complex is 4,805 square feet. We're looking to put on 486. That puts us at, what, my eyes are getting bad, 5,291, so we're below that 50% level. We talked about 2575 here just a minute ago. So our home is in a residential neighborhood. Barbara Cower and her husband, when they developed this and designed the house, it has very much a prairie style, Frank Lloyd Wright type of a look. It has, I'm colorblind as well, it's kind of a gray, brown, tan facade with red up on top. The majority of the house is slab on grade. We are hoping, it's our goal to keep the architectural and the aesthetic integrity of the home. Won't disrupt the neighborhood. That is what's already there. So we talked about a potential waiver. I think staff has that in there. We'd be looking for the same thing to make sure we have the same look. So here's another picture. This is showing where we're planning the dotted line, where we're planning on construction entrance through our parking lot back to get to the back. We have the silt fences there. One other area, if we look closely where the addition is going, we show a little rain garden back there. Actually, that addition will displace an existing rain garden. Actually, when they did the renovations, we have 4 bioretention basins on site. We have the permeable pavers. We have the geotech or the geogrid overflow parking. We have a cistern that takes water off the roof that we reuse. When we originally renovated the place, we are far in exceedance of our own rules as well as the city's rules for water quality and volume. So even if we do not replace that rain garden and we still add the 486 square feet, we still have an excess of volume and water quality that we need to meet it. However, because we are an environmental entity, water is our main emphasis, and because we're educational, people come in and we can show some of these BMPs, cost share grant applicants can come in and here's what you can do on your yard. We will be putting another rain garden there to take the runoff from that roof. This one is a little bit smaller and harder. So when we do the addition, we will not have to knock down any trees. So all existing trees will stay. We do plan on, we'll have shrubs and screening things around the air conditioner units back in that back corner of the addition. We also plan on doing screening plantings back on that north and east area. We hope in the future to do a little more buckthorn removal. We'd like to, before we do that, give some shrubs and trees an opportunity to grow up and leaf out a little bit. So our request tonight is just that the Planning Commission find our PUD and site plan request in compliance with the development agreement. Ultimately, we're not seeking to raise our 5 limit to something else. We're not going to be a larger watershed, staff-wise. We do a lot of our work with consultants. But because of that, we're not going to be adding traffic to the neighborhood, a neighborhood that already is a little bit worried about traffic because of construction going on. It's just to address our office space and our storage needs. And then lastly, again, we will be seeking a waiver for that 2575, the facade, to maintain the architectural and aesthetic integrity. And with that, I'll take questions.
Great, thank you. Questions? Just one question. Did you hear from neighbors at all about this project?
I did have a meeting last Monday between 5:30 and 6:30, and the only person that came was our direct neighbor just to the north, who is actually a volunteer for us and does a lot of work, so she was in favor of it. Nobody else showed up.
Okay, great. Thank you.
Thank you.
Just to speak to that, I remember the 2011 approval of this in general, and there was quite a group of neighbors here concerned about the traffic issues, and I think they were pleased to hear of the minimal traffic impact that was expected, and I think the idea that no neighbors are here probably says that they're pretty satisfied. Good that you had a neighbor meeting, but
We actually had that development in this neighborhood just, what, a month or two ago, and we did see an enthusiastic audience there. So I would share my belief that the neighbors are probably pretty happy with what's going on relative to this expansion.
Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you. Julie, will you be doing the planner's report?
Yes, sir. Mr. Chair, members of the Commission, 9 Mile Creek Watershed District is requesting an amendment to their PUD with waivers as well as a site plan approval to construct a roughly 480 some thousand, not thousand, whoa, sorry, 480 square foot addition. Mr. Anhorn did a very thorough job in his overview of the project and the impacts to the stormwater. So I'll just hit on a few points from a city perspective. Mr. Anhorn did discuss the fact that they are requesting a waiver for the architectural materials. With the original PUD, there was a waiver granted for the existing building with regard to the building materials, so staff is carrying that waiver forward to apply to this addition as well. The materials that this project proposes are consistent with the residential character of the neighborhood and the existing building, so staff is recommending approval of the PUD waiver. Mr. Anhorn also talked about the parking that is on site and the addition that would not drive any need for additional parking, so no additional parking is proposed. The site currently has approximately 26 parking stalls, and the need for those parking stalls rises more from the meetings that are scheduled at the Watershed District than it does from the amount of staff that is on site. So the city has not received any complaints with regard to parking shortage or parking availability on the site. So staff is recommending approval of the application subject to the conditions that you have in your staff report, and I'd be happy to answer any questions that you might have.
Questions? Okay. All right. Seeing none, this is a public hearing. If anyone would like to come forward and speak for or against this project, please do so now. Seeing none, I'll entertain a motion to close public hearing.
Mr. Chairman, move to close the public hearing.
A motion from Commissioner Kirk. Do I have a second?
Second.
Second from Commissioner Villarreal. All those in favor of closing public hearing, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Seeing none, public hearing is closed. Further discussion.
Mr. Chair,
Commissioner Farr.
I really like this project. It's very low impact to our community and environmentally sensitive. On a side note, I did walk the property recently, and it's called Discovery Point, and I would encourage citizens and commissioners, if you haven't done so yourselves, to visit the property. It's very educational, and I think it's a great asset to our community. So I'm very much in favor of the project.
Thank you, Commissioner Farr. Commissioner Meddy?
I'll just touch on this, the waiver for the materials. I think in this case, it's well justified given the existing character of the neighborhood, the building itself. This isn't even, visible from the street or the front of the building. So I think it'd be onerous to even place that requirement on them. So I'm in favor of it.
Okay. Other discussion? All right, seeing none, I'll entertain a motion. Oh, Commissioner Villarreal.
Sorry, can I ask you for just a quick second? You have, I guess, roughly 480 some odd square feet left in your allowance. I'm just curious, do you have, in thinking about where you want to put this addition, have you mapped out potential places where you'd put new ones, or are you just sort of, at this point in time, thinking this is about all we want to do?
Commissioner, we have not, and
Okay.
my current board said, if you're going to ask for something, ask for what,
Do it all
so
now.
it's bigger. I can't put constraints on future boards, but staff or the current board, we don't have any plans.
Okay.
It's just, again, we can only have 5 employees anyway. That's really all we're trying to fulfill.
Okay, thank you.
All right, would anyone like to make a motion?
Mr. Chairman,
Yes.
move to recommend approval for the PUD concept review on 5.31 acres plan unit development amendment with waivers on 5.31 acres and site plan review on 5.31 acres based on plans stamped dated September 23rd, 2019, and staff report dated October 3rd, 2019.
All right, I have a motion to approve from Commissioner Kirk. Do I have a second?
Second.
Second from Commissioner Villarreal. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Would anyone like to abstain? Thank you. Congratulations. Your project moves forward. All right. Julie, do we have a planner's report this evening?
No, sir.
Do we have members' reports from anybody? All right. I'll entertain a motion to adjourn.
So moved.
All right. Second?
Second.
All right. All those in favor say aye.
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 Opposed? All right. Meeting's adjourned. Thank you, everyone.